June 3rd, 1987, Chicago. This afternoon I found a $50 bill in the foyer of the building near the mailboxes. It was folded thin and full of Coke. Some of it spilled when I opened it up, but there's still plenty left. So that's $50 in cash and around $80 worth of cocaine. $130. If I find $50 every day, I won't need to get a job.
Yeah, what?
June 7th. I dared myself to lean too hard against one of the living room windows yesterday, and it broke and cut my elbow up. Later in the afternoon, I took the empty frame to the hardware store, where they said it would cost $30 for new glass. That seemed exorbitant to me, so I was walking back home by way of the empty lot when an American Indian woman grabbed onto it, saying she'd been looking for a window frame just like this. "I need it," she said. "Hand it over." Her face was strikingly flat, and for a second all I could do was stare at it. The woman was holding a beer bottle and put it down so she could grab my window frame with both hands. "Turn it loose," she said, and the several drunk people behind her cheered her on. Then, a man who was slightly less drunk told her to let it go. "Leave him alone, Cochise," he said. "This here's a working man." I haven't worked in more than 3 weeks, but it was nice to be mistaken for someone with a job. Today I took the frame down on a different street to the L where I thought I'd tried another hardware store. Right near the station, a man asked me for money, and when I walked by, he shouted, "What? Watch where you're going with that thing, asshole! You almost killed that girl! You almost hit her with that window, you fucker!" I said, "What?" "You just about hit that baby, you son of a bitch! I'm gonna kill you! I'm gonna teach you a lesson you'll never forget, you little fuck! You can't get away from me!" The guy was really beside himself, and I'm lucky I was so close to this ticket window. I worried he'd panhandle enough money to reach the platform before the train arrived, but luckily he didn't. And what baby? I didn't see any baby. Why did I have to break that window, and on a dare, for God's sake? June 11th. I got a few days' work painting for Lou Conti, a nice guy in a high-rise. On Tuesday afternoon, the doorman in his building chewed me out for riding in the elevator. He said, "How'd you get upstairs this morning?" "How?" "The main elevator is buried walnut." It was very clean, and riding in it, I wondered why anyone might ever think to deface anything so beautiful. Not that it was defaced. The doorman marched me around back to the service entrance. He said, "Our tenants don't want to come home and find people like you in the lobby." I just happened to be a college graduate, I wanted to say, but of course I didn't, as it never works to get huffy in these situations. If I have to, I'll just take the nice elevator from Lou's door, then change to the service elevator on 2. The service elevator is like riding in a cat food can.
Yeah, it is like that right there.
There were 2 men at the IHOP tonight. One was brokenhearted and didn't give the other guy a chance to speak. His topic was getting over Beth. "The relationship didn't fall apart," he said. "It was torn apart."
Yeah, I like that.
June 13th. We went to Betty's Lounge for a drink last night. It's ever crowded, and when we arrived, there was only one customer. She looked like a grandmother and wore rimless glasses and a straw hat with fake flowers on it. The woman was drinking beer and playing baseball, fighting the machine but never calling it names. I was watching her when 3 other women came in, 2 of them wearing feed caps. The bartender singled out the one who was bareheaded, saying, "I'll close up shop before I ever sell to a nigger, and that's what you are, a white-faced nigger." All 3 women appeared to be drunk. 2 of them adjusted their caps, and the third one said, "You can't talk to me that way, you son of a bitch and asshole." The bartender told her to leave. Apparently she tried a friend of his named Doug, with whom he had once worked at in an ice factory. He said he would not serve any bitch that would shoot a man in the back with his own fucking gun, shoot him while he was shaving, no less. "How many years did you get, bitch? Your mama's a fucking bitch," the woman said. The bartender lit a cigarette and threw the burning match on her. Then the woman started to cry. She said that Doug deserved to die and asked how the bartender would like it if someone pushed his head through the basement window and kicked his ass up and down Magnolia Avenue. The bartender said she deserved it. "Why, you bald-headed, you white-haired bastard," the woman said. "I'll shoot you too. You ain't never gonna get the chance to kill me, nigga, 'cause I'm never gonna turn my back on you," the bartender said. The woman stepped toward the door and called the man more names. She said she didn't want to stay in this dump anymore. "Come on, girls," she shouted. "Let's go down to the Wooden Nickel." But her friends didn't join her. They stayed. After she left, they ordered drinks and told the bartender that they never liked the bitch in the first place. Never. June 14th. Geraldine Page died yesterday of a heart attack. I heard about it on the radio. She was one of my favorite actresses. I went to the beach at Montrose Harbor and sat in a towel for a while. People there barbecue and then dump their hot coals on the grass and drive away, leaving everything else behind. They throw garbage into the lake just to watch it float. Children swim in the shallow water and pull soiled Pampers up from the bottom. What I like about Montrose Beach is that all the loud music is in another language. Bad teenagers hang out in the alley behind our building, and whenever they see me on my bike, they call me Pee-wee, after Pee-wee Herman, because I have an old one-speed bike that cost $8. It gets on my nerves, but if I had a better bike, they'd just steal it. June 16th. I had an elaborate fantasy yesterday after the kids called me Pee-wee again. I kept thinking how great it would be to follow them home, buy their apartment buildings, and evict them. I don't know what I would do with the buildings after I bought them. I just wasn't thinking that clearly. June 19th. I ran into Walton the L this morning. He owes me $450 and said he was just going to call me the other day because Gail, his wife, is always saying, "We need to pay that David Sedaris." I actually don't hold anything against him. I miss Walt and Gail. Walt said that last week she got a profit-sharing check for $10,000. That was why he planned to call, to pay me. He said he took the check to the bank but lost it along the way. It was physically big, he told me. I folded it in my top pocket, and wouldn't you know, he called the bank to cancel it. Then he called New York for a replacement check, but the woman whose job it would be to write it wasn't on vacation. Wouldn't you know? At around 5, we took the L home. The woman near me had a 3-year-old child in her lap, a girl who looked at me and said, "Mommy, I hate that man." Hours later, I walking up Blueland. I heard someone running up behind me. It was a guy who lives in this halfway house next door. He is black and wore a long-sleeved shirt buttoned all the way to the neck. The man called her sir and asked how I was doing. The man called me sir and asked how I was doing. I'm sorry. All right, I said. He told me that he had a taste for steak sandwich and asked me if I'd buy him one. You can't pull money out of your pocket on Leland Avenue. It's like ringing a bell, so I said no, and he ran across the street to ask a woman the same question. Later still, I saw 2 men sitting in a car in front of the halfway house. They had the door open and were listening to the radio. As I passed, one of them asked me for a cigarette. "I don't smoke," I told them. Then I thought of the guy who wanted a steak sandwich and of the little girl who hated me and thought, what the hell? I handed the guy in the car one of my cigarettes and he scowled at me and said, "Fucking liar." June 21st. I listened to a radio tribute to Archie Bowler, the creator of Lights Out, a scary program that aired in the 30s. They interviewed him at his home in Studio City, and then they played a few of his radio dramas, starting with Catwife, about a woman who hangs out with her friends, drinking and gossiping. Her husband calls her a cat, and then she turns into one. It was a 15-minute story dragged out to half an hour. Boris Karloff played the husband and would say, "You, Linda, are nothing but a cat. A cat. You hear me? You remind me of a cat. When I think of you, a cat comes to mind. You cat, you belong in an alley with your friends, yowling and carrying on. Cat." When Linda turns into a cat, Boris Karloff feels responsible. He tries to keep it a secret and murders 2 people who discover the truth. Then Linda claws his eyes out and he shoots himself by accident. June 22nd. When John Sokantis was growing up in Greece, he learned to play water polo and smoke. He told me that when kids misbehaved in class, the teacher would send them to the corner where they had to kneel on a pile of rocks. I like the kind of man John is. He watches things closely and then does nothing with the information. His English has improved since I met him 4 years ago, shortly before he had an aneurysm. The other night at a pizza restaurant, he played a game of picking out 30 spies hidden in the landscape of his placemat. I couldn't even find one, but then explains it. It's not the whole thing, he told me. Only the heads of the spies.